So I did it. I made a feature film, my life's ambition. And it made me want to quit filmmaking altogether.
I was here to check in on the maids. Sam said you were still jumpy about the ghost story. So wait, when you said about the pills...
Yeah. To end my life.
So despite that intro, this is not a whinge and a moan. I don't think there's any point in making that video. It's not going to help anybody. What I want to try to do here is highlight the things that we did well, the things that worked, and also the issues that we faced, solutions that we came up with, in the hope that these might be of use to any of you guys who are thinking about doing a similar thing. So we'll start there with pre-production. Here in Bali, we have a New Year ceremony called Nyepi, a silent day. So there's a big party, and they make very large-scale effigies of demons, modern and new, so old-style witches, etc. And then amusing ogo they're called, amusing versions, or like influencers or remote workers, or a modern joke about modern demons and devils. Burn them and a big a party, and then the next day and night are spent in silence. The airport shuts down in Bali, the power's off, the lights are out, you're not allowed to go out of the house. It's supposed to be a meditational period. I mean, hospitals are still running and emergency services can still provide what they need to, but it's an introverted time. So I wrote a screenplay based upon people trapped in a house being murdered by a layak, a witch. And David Zilberberg, the producer of Redemption Day, it's a movie with, let me check my notes, because I know it's Andy Garcia and Robert Knepper. And it was Robert Knepper, sorry, from Prison Break. And also Gary Dourdan played the main role from CSI. And he was interested in making Silent Day. But then COVID hit, and COVID just broke everything, because even if you had your finances and producers all in place, when you came back after COVID, nothing was the same. I've got friends trying to get movies made that were in the, just about green lit, about to go, and you'd think that, okay, just wait for COVID, pick it up afterwards, but that hasn't worked. So that happened to me. So I wrote another one. I said, right, I'm going to make a feature film, but it needs to be based on the Dov Simmons model of taking a kind of a stage play and shooting it almost live theater style with multiple cameras, no retakes, just blast through it from multiple angles, get your coverage and get the thing done. So that's what I did with this feature film. It was a story originally with 4 characters in one room, one location, a hotel suite, and then going to shoot it with 3 FX30 cameras, which had just come out, get lots and lots of coverage and shoot the hell out of it, get a feature film in 4 nights. So major ambition. So the pre-production was based on that concept. So the first thing obviously is script and actors. Script, as I said, I've written many, so I got that done relatively easily, I thought. And then I've done some other productions in Bali, short films, a TV series, trailer, and met some awesome people, some great actors and some really good crew, foreign and domestic here. So I put together the team without too much problem, and I managed to persuade my long-serving girlfriend to produce it. It was a mission, because she produced other things for me, including the TV series pilot, and drew the line and said, I don't want to do this kind of work anymore. But I persuaded her like a one-off. And this is something that I'll come to a little bit later, but this is when you have favors. And when you have favors, you have to be careful. People working for free or in return for something intangible, it can make your life more complicated. So we'll come back to that. Right, so my first issue was actually on the casting. I originally had 4 actors. So it would be the central character, the music star, who's decided to commit suicide to cement her social media standing. A producer who finds out at the last minute is trying to talk her out of it. Her social media manager who's all for it, and her long-standing friend, accomplice, costume designer. And we started rehearsing, and because it is a dialogue intense movie, there's a lot to do, lots of practice, and I knew we were going to have to refine the script. So the first thing that happened was the Russia-Ukraine war started. And one of the characters, one of the actors is Russian. One of them was Ukrainian at the time. And although it was not a problem for them, between them, I thought, okay, this could be a great opportunity because we can add that dimension to the movie. It'll be topical. It might help get them to sell the movie. It might get attention. But that was not to be. Now, the first thing was that the Ukrainian actress, I'm not going to mention her name. I don't want to be negative about her. I chose her because she's good. But she was not attending the rehearsals on time. The other guys were complaining, saying they're putting in the hard work and she's not. And I ended up having to speak to her about it. But then when I confronted her about her tardiness and lack of commitment, she sent me a whole bunch of WhatsApp messages, starting with being offended, and then ended up, went through the process of questioning her role and explaining her ADHD and other problems she was dealing with, and then eventually finished the WhatsApp messages by essentially firing herself from this waste of time project by a washed up middle-aged crisis director, and walked off. So I guess the lesson there is that, thank God this happened at the beginning. So I think you need to be clear on your characters, your people, your actors, the key personnel. It's very important to make sure that you understand them, that you're all on the same page, and you iron out these problems at the beginning. So that was a lesson learned from that one. So now I thought, well, I can replace this actress, or what I decided to do instead was to rewrite. I amalgamated the social media manager and the close friend costume designer into one character. So now I had less to deal with. And I figured with my 3FX30 concept, 3 small camera concept, that could work better. So there's a rewrite. So there's something that you will expect to do some of. You'll have to be prepared to do rewrites. So that's another lesson. Be prepared to rewrite the script based around your constraints, and that's ongoing. Sometimes a negative reason like this, but it can make things more simple. A lot of times as you develop with the characters and you listen to the actors, you'll see something that you would like to add or like to include, and you always end up with the rewriting. So be prepared for that. Then the second issue was, having made these characters, the Russian and Ukrainian concept, the Russian actress, so we're probably about a year in now. I was working in Mongolia to get the money to make this film, and she messaged me, in view of what's happened, she's not comfortable with playing a Russian character interacting with the Ukrainian, and the story had a sister turning up and it was about the historical relationship between Russia and Ukraine, and it was close. There was the Soviet Union, then the separate countries, and now the situation that everybody knows about. And I said, well, okay, we're not pro-war, anti-war. We're not getting into the politics or any of that kind of stuff. But she said, no, it could affect my friends and family back home, so I can't do it. And she said, I understand if you want to drop me from the project, but if it's got that Russia-Ukraine element in it, then I can't do it. And I wasn't having the best of time in Mongolia. It's a tough environment, although I was working for some really nice people and the accommodation was pretty nice at that stage. But it's difficult being away and in such a unusual and damn cold environment. Worst day there, January, -44 before wind chill. So not making excuses, but I wasn't in the best state of mind, and felt like I was committing to this project and bringing my part. And I was a bit irritated by this. And I actually thought, yeah, maybe I should replace her. But it was 9 months, 12 months into the project. And I didn't want to rewrite. I was like, I could rewrite this. I could change it from Russia, Ukraine into something else. Katya, the actress, she's well capable of playing different nationalities. And I was on the fence. And I'm a bit ashamed to say that because I shouldn't have been. And my girlfriend, the aforementioned producer, kicked me up the arse and said, hey, you can rewrite this. Don't be lazy. These people have shown loyalty and commitment to you and have been working hard and turned up to your rehearsals and learned their lines for a year. You must show, if you want loyalty, you have to show loyalty back. I think that's the point. That the team, a loyal, committed team, is the most important, and don't let them down. Don't betray them. And suitably chastised, I realized, yes, I was being lazy. I didn't want to rewrite. And it didn't take me very long. You know, when you when you have a problem, the way to deal with it is not focus on the problem, but sit down and ask yourself, how can I do whatever it is you need to do? And it didn't take me long at all to come up with a solution involving Czechoslovakia as a replacement. Czechoslovakia split in two after the breakdown of the Soviet Union. It became two countries, the Czech Republic and Slovakia. It fitted easily into my concept. The accent was relatively easy for Katja to do. And again, it required effort from her, it required her to pick up, do some study, learn a little bit about it. And for me also to learn about the background and to get into what happened in Slovakia. And also it was connected with the Balkans War, which I didn't know. They had staff serving there. So it was a lesson. And that's a big one, is be loyal to your team if you want loyalty from them. So I rewrote it, and then we made the modifications, and that was our next step. So one overall point is then that we finally got to the finished script, subject to small modifications. As a writer, director, you should have a very clear idea of what it is that you want and how it all fits together. The problem is that when people come up with ideas, both good and bad, you have to stick to your concept, but be flexible enough to recognize when either there's a problem with what you've come up with or someone else has come up with a brilliant idea that you should incorporate. And that's difficult because you have to be open-minded, but at the same time, the buck stops with you, and you have to be confident and stick to your guns when you're sure that you're right. So that's another lesson I would say. Try to walk that fine line, be open-minded to ideas, but have a filter and be clear. Make sure that you stick to the concept that you have in mind, the overall story that you want to tell and how you want to tell it. So another issue that came up in pre-production to manage was that my good friend Peter Richweiss, who's a stunning DOP, he just paints with light. He made a couple of short films, one with me before, just amazing film, The Bottom Turn. Won all sorts of awards. Really proud to say it won the Palermo Film Festival, which is a sports film festival. It's the oldest one in the world. Really glad to say that it won that one. And he was unavailable, and he shoots on red. We shot The Bottom Turn on 8K raw red footage on his red weapon. And my other friend I've worked with on a lot of projects, including the pilot for the TV series and various projects in Dubai, is Tom Richardson, who's a Peabody Award-winning documentary and commercial DOP. So Tom was in the frame, and he had an FX30, so I bought an FX30, and we figured we'd be able to rent one more, or maybe an FX3, and then we'd have our 3 cameras for this mobile shoot. And then Peter said he'd read the script, looked at the situation, and he was working on a feature film in Romania that got delayed. And he said, I'm available, I'll do it. And that put me in another situation here, like, red camera, I can shoot 8K RAW, I can have all that dynamic range, all that flexibility. It's going to be red, it's going to be Peter, it's going to look amazing. But Tom's committed, and Tom's, we had another method of shooting it for which Tom was probably more suited. So now I had this dilemma again. Saying it was shot on red might enable me to market the film more successfully afterwards, but it's only one camera. I can't shoot a feature film in 4 nights on one red camera. I had a C300 Mark II at the time. That could be the backup camera. It was a really difficult choice. Now I went with the red and the C300, and that ended up being forced on me because Tom became unavailable. He was quite willing to come in and operate one of the other units under Peter's supervision. And that would have been a really, really beautiful solution, but Tom in the end became unavailable. I had to get another couple of guys to operate cameras, and that's how it ended. But the movie then ended up being a little bit static, although it's beautifully shot, it holds together, I'm very proud of it. It's as an example of the fact that, say, hey, I can make a feature film, here it is. It holds together. There's no real drop in the production value anywhere. It's an integrated, fully functional feature film. But I can't help thinking if we went the other way, we would have had something more dynamic. We would have had cameras moving around. We would have had lots and lots of coverage, 3 cameras moving around, 1 on each actor almost all of the time, maybe some 2 shots, etc. I would have had a lot more coverage to play with. On the other hand, it could have turned out terrible. The guys could have been casting shadows on each other. They could have fallen over each other. They could have caught each other in a shot more often than I could deal with. So I don't know. I'll never know unless I make that movie again. So I just have to go with my choice. It did give me a lot of problems in the edit, which we'll come to when we come to post-production. But that was my decision. And so that's something you're going to have to face. So you're going to have to, I'd say the lesson is you have to be prepared to make very difficult decisions, which will hugely affect your film, and think deeply about it. And then once you've made the decision, I suppose you just have to commit, go to it, go for it and do the best that you can. All right, so moving on to the production itself. As I said, we moved away from the 3 FX30 concept and we went for the Red, but we only had 1 and I couldn't find another one to rent, and none of us really knew how to operate it. That's Peter's team. He brought over an assistant called You. So we had to call him Mr. You. I was after the first 24 hours of You's doing this. Who's You? You needs to do that. You're in charge. No, you were supposed to do that. It just got too confusing. So we called him Mr. U. So Mr. U was really the focus puller and the AC on the Red. And Abdil, who came in, wonderful Mexican guy, was helping us as AC on both of the cameras, on the C300 and on the Red. Now there's another little lesson. Abdil, terrific personality, always happy, always smiling. We had a very difficult shoot ahead of us. I'll explain now the main adversary, if you like, to a pleasant time, which was to do with the location. But people like Abdil being on the set, who are always upbeat, always smiling, have that energy, are just happy to be there. It infects everybody else, and it adds a huge percentage to your to what you can get done and how much people will put in. So there's a lesson there. Those people are really, really valuable. And alongside of him is my good friend Sasan Kave, who's basically like a refugee from Iran living in Indonesia. He's been involved in production for a long, long time and knows a lot. He knows lighting, production. He is a sound recordist. He's directed. He's worked on television in various countries. He's the guy that quietly gets on with like, oh, I know what we need to do here. We need to lock tie this light into position in this strange location and make it work. And he does it. So excellent to have these people on set. And a couple of others I'll come to later. So it's these types of personalities can make a huge difference to your production. So seek them out, grab them if you can, and don't exploit them, but they can really make a difference. So include them where you can. So going back to the camera, my C300 Mark II was going to have to be our second camera. We did camera tests and we learned 2 things. In a well-lit situation, I'm almost beginning to agree with the conspiracy theory that there's been no major innovations in camera sensor technology since the 5D Mark II, period. And that you can see why ARRI stuck with the same sensor for such a long time, because although they have more dynamic range than most of the cameras, the changes seem to have been in frame rates, in special features that the cameras have, the housings, the codecs used. But really, in a well-lit situation on our test, there was not much difference between what was a €50,000 Red setup. Not now, those cameras have come down a lot in value, and my cheap little C300 Mark II. So I wondered if we could use my R5 as well. It just shoots 8K RAW. And we did some tests with it. Again, the footage, the image was not miles away from the other 2 cameras. I think it was possibly slightly better than the C300 Mark II. New technology, full frame sensor. But you can't trust it in 8K RAW. Is it going to overheat? Massive files in addition to the huge ones coming out of the Red. I did buy a 12 terabyte mobile storage and got DIT Vishnu to take care of that for us. More about him later. But it just proved to be too difficult. I could see Peter really didn't want to use it. So we used it for behind the scenes and a few shots that didn't make it to the final film. So basically with that setup, we were able to cover things, but we'll come to this in post-production, but because only having 2 cameras instead of 3 cameras, going down to 2 meant that we had 2 shot and a single shot most of the time, as we had 3 people in the shot, maybe 50% of the time, at least always having 2 people talking. So we could shoot simultaneously, which was our plan, because we were trying for the impossible, to shoot a feature film in 4 days. So that required a lot of planning. The first night, actually, we did a walkthrough of the film just for blocking and camera placement. So the guys knew where they were going to be, Peter could plan the lighting, and actors knew where cameras would be. But we had some weird setups where we had Ben, my friend is a French cinematographer, works for a spices company in Bali. He's an in-house videographer, but he helped us out as well. He came and actually operated the C300. He was a whiz with the manual focus because he's a black magic guy, never got used to autofocus. We ended up with him. He's a hefty guy, he's a strong guy. You know, we go to the gym together. And he's ended up with a C300 on one shoulder shooting this way and the red camera on his other shoulder shooting the other way, being operated by Peter and you to get the 2 angles at the same time. So we had to be innovative. It was apparent to me as we were going that it was going to be difficult to get all the coverage that I wanted, and it was really hard work to think on my feet. So there's another lesson that when you are not sure about that you have surplus coverage, you have to know very, very well your script and have the edit in your head to make sure you're getting those shots. And thankfully, the couple of areas where I tripped up, Peter saved me by saying, why don't we do a quick summary? Let's do some close-ups of the key moments. What are the key lines in this scene that you want? Let's do some close-ups of those and get them in the bag in case. That saved me in the edit many times. Now, another production issue, actually I should have mentioned this a little bit in pre-production as well, is that I realized that to shoot the film in this manner, I was going to need a prompter, like a script supervisor, but somebody who could quickly throw a line in without upsetting the actors, get them back on track. Typical solution in a stage play is that, let's say my line is, I've got to go now, and I've forgotten my line. Another actor who realizes I'm flubbing it can say, are you staying? And you say, oh, no, I've got to go. And it puts you back on track. So you can use those techniques for sure. And then you have the prompter in the booth at the bottom of the stage in case it all goes terribly wrong. So we're working on that kind of basis. And I knew we'd have to, because we were going to use this Dove Simmons method to shoot stage play-like. And hundreds and hundreds of lines of dialogue. I couldn't expect the actors to know them all perfectly, although they nearly did. I mean, they did an incredible job of learning those lines and running them together outside of rehearsals. So I advertised for somebody, and I got a response from 2 people, Leith and Ian from Australia. Now, Leith is an actress and turned out to be a radio presenter, and she was absolutely fantastic for this job. Just a really sweet, nice, sympathetic person to put the actors at ease, remind them of their lines without making them feel like they were screwing up too badly. And then Ian came along and was very modestly made himself available to do anything to support the film. I found out later that he's actually quite a big radio show host in Australia and been on many networks and knew his way around production, but he was extremely modest the way he joined. And he subbed for Leith in the first week and during rehearsals when she wasn't available to be the prompter. And when we went to do to start the production, Ian actually said to me, you know this is impossible. You can't shoot a 110 page feature film in 4 nights. He said, I know enough about production. This is impossible. I'm here to help you, but you know you're attempting the impossible. And he said, yeah. And he was invaluable because he was willing to turn his hand to anything. So I need you to be an AD. He's like, what's an AD? Big voice, shout at people, get them in place, make them do things. He's right, I can do that. And he did that and many other things. So I think that's also going back to what I said before about grabbing onto people who've got something to offer, and let them contribute. Be careful not to go too far the other way, because you don't want them overstepping the mark and trying to do too much and maybe encroaching on other people's territory. But these people who can do multiple roles and adapt from one to the other, very flexible, have a lot of life skills, they're hugely beneficial for your film. So try and get them on, even if they don't seem to fit a role that you'll find on a producer's list of employees or roles. Get them in, because you don't know what they can offer. And people have constantly surprised me about what extra skills they have and the contribution that they can make. Now, one of the problems with the production, which was my fault because I made a mistake in the pre-production, was the location. We wanted an expensive looking villa that could appear to be a VIP suite in a hotel, and Bali. So there's lots of that. And we found a great one. I say we, it's again, Jessie, my producer, she found it. We went to see it, and it was fantastic. It's just perfect. Huge long garden, big pool. You can hear the waves in the background, close to the beach. It looked like a VIP setup. It was an expensive villa. One huge room. Peter had the great idea of just opening up the room, leaving all the doors and windows open. And it was quite pleasant there during the day. It's up in Tabanan on the west coast of Bali. And I thought, well, this is going to be fantastic because it fits the movie, which is written deliberately to be at night in a supernatural kind of element. And I wanted control of the lighting. We're going to shoot the whole thing at night. So I figured if it's not that hot in the day, it's going to be very pleasant at night. And here's where I was completely wrong, because as soon as the sun went down, because the landmass cools down faster than the sea, we ended up with this humid wind blowing straight into our venue, bringing this sticky, horrible situation for everybody. And it wasn't enough of a wind to cool you down. It was just a gradual drift of this very humid, unpleasant air, and it was horrible. The main room was not air conditioned. We couldn't use the air conditioning anyway if it had, because of the noise. The big fan, Clever Clogs here, had fastened the major light, our big vulcanized light, onto that major fan because it's in perfect position to provide the master light. And that was just, it was just exactly the wrong thing to do. And that made the whole setup just so horrible for everybody, especially actors with makeup on and regular clothes, not beachwear. So between takes, they would have to run into the air-conditioned bedrooms, which were kept as cold as possible, suffer a thermal shock, and have their makeup redone and dabbed down all the time. And the poor guys were dripping, and it wasn't very pleasant for us either, moving lights around. And that was a big mistake that I made. But it was what it was, and the people dealt with it. They got through it. But if you can avoid doing that. I understand I should have gone to a location multiple times, so I'd recommend that. And I would also recommend going in the conditions under which you're going to film, and make sure the venue is suitable. One issue that I forgot to mention during pre-production is that I decided to introduce an element of the supernatural into the script. Because horror, supernatural stuff is popular, I was hoping it would make the movie easier to sell. And there's a legend in Bali and Java about a goddess who inhabits one room of a hotel. And in our script, the greedy hotel manager rents that room out. He's not supposed to do that.
Yeah, it's cool. Look, they won't come in alone, but they come in as a pair, and they get done quite quickly, actually.
I'm glad to hear that. Room 327 was the only room I had available for Miss Natasha. And I'm all for local tradition, but I can hardly keep one of my best suites permanently occupied for a sea goddess. They don't exactly pay the bills.
And that's where our cast end up. So that brings in the supernatural element. The second part of that is that there are haters and there are just parasites who often will try and interfere with your film production, especially because they think there's money involved. So prepare yourself for that. So in our case, it wasn't long before we had some local representative, self-elected no doubt, just turning up and saying, well, you're shooting a film, you don't have permission. Like, yes, we do. We have all the permissions. We had all that sorted out. Yes, but these drivers here are from a different part of the island. You're not allowed to use them. I said, yes, we are. We have permission. And if you pay attention, you'll see that we're using all of your local drivers, and these are the extra drivers because you don't have enough. Yes, but your people are coming backwards and forwards. You should be using local accommodation. Yes, we have taken every room in all of your homestays and small hotels. We have everything. And some of the people are having to come because there is no accommodation for them in this village. And it just goes on. And you have to be prepared for this. You have to have everything ticked off. Also make sure, like in our case, we had foreigners. So we have to make sure that they all have the necessary stay permit and work permit, which are not the same thing in Indonesia. And that everybody is legal to work, nobody's doing anything they shouldn't be doing, et cetera, because working to the very, very tight schedule you will be on a low budget film, you can't afford to be shut down for a day by some jumped up local official who thinks that he can extract money from you. So make sure you cover yourself. There are times when you're going to shoot guerrilla style and get away with it, but if you're setting up yourself in a particular location for days, don't leave yourself open to these kind of people sabotaging you. Make sure you've got everything you need, permits, all the documentation, and a pit bull terrier who, like my producer, who can send these people packing, satisfy all their requirements, and then just tell them to go away. And that brings us to another important issue. It's Napoleon who's usually credited with the concept of an army marches on its stomach. And this is so important, so important. We didn't skimp on the catering. My girlfriend is an amazing cook, chef, and has catered to large events. Bali is known for its ceremonies and lavish weddings, etc. So most people here are familiar with the concept of these large-scale entertainments and catering. And my girlfriend and her couple of assistants did a fantastic job. So much so that actually when I made a music video a couple of weeks ago that I'll talk about at the end of this, the first question from the people we contacted, who obviously were the ones who worked well for us on this feature film, was not actually about the money. It was whether it would be the same food, whether the food would be provided like last time. It's vital, and it's something that's come back multiple times. And as a person on a set, if you can just grab a drink and something to eat that suits you, that just gets you in the right frame of mind, boosts you in the way that you need, whether you're a matcha, green tea, oat milk specialist, or whether you're just someone who wants to grab a burger or a chocolate bar, whatever it is, if those things are on the set, it makes a massive difference to the people because you can change their mood in 1 minute. And every time somebody smells there's nice food coming on time, when it's supposed to be, they get fed properly, they feel not only physically better, but feel like they're appreciated and taken care of. That makes a massive difference on your set. So if it was Napoleon who originally said it, he's right. And don't skimp on the catering. So major production issue we came across, and again, it falls back to me. I failed here. One of our central characters, he's playing a non-binary character, and he does a scene talking about his abuse, how he was abused. And it's to make a point to the central character that she's being pathetic and she shouldn't be complaining because he's had real suffering in his life. Now, when I wrote this scene, it was purely imaginary from my side. But as we rehearsed it, we realized that this was hitting quite close to home for Angie, the actor. And he said, yes, this is pretty close to what happened to him. So it was coming from the heart. And so we realized we had to be very sensitive about this and prepare for it. And you have to create a safe feeling environment for an actor to open up when it's intensely personal like this. But Angie's also, he's eccentric, and he was having trouble with the lines quite a lot of the time. And that's one of the reasons we had Leith was fantastic. But I expected that in his major scene, he was going to have a problem with the lines. And it was a long monologue. And I was wrong. He absolutely smashed it, blasted through it. Katya was fantastic because they're all friends at feeding him a little bit of lines when he appeared to go adrift, pulled him back. But he smashed through it. It was just like, oh my God. And everyone clapped and applauded because it was a very, very intense scene. He did a wonderful job. And I thought, oh, thank God for that. That's a major weight off my shoulders. This is going to be great now. Then the story moves on to where he starts to reveal, prompted by the goddess in his head, secrets he's been keeping about the main character's past and the existence, for instance, of a relative, a very close relative that she didn't know. And he completely fell apart. He couldn't remember any of his lines. And Leith was having to prompt him almost 2-3 words at a time. And this is not going to work. I thought, oh my God. I was within 15 minutes of my schedule. Now I'm going to be hours behind. I don't think we can do this. And I called a halt. I said, like, okay, we have to stop. We have to find another way to do this. It's just never going to get done. And it's so awkward. It's not going to work. And I didn't know what to do. And I sat with Angie, and this is where I realized that I'd been remiss in not understanding, not sitting with him and learning about him, that he has dyslexia. And he also has another kind of associative problem. Now, he's a fantastic designer, but he's like numbers, for instance. And sometimes, like happens with dyslexics, the words seem to move on the screen for him. And I mentioned this, I was sitting thinking, what the hell can I do? We need a big screen behind him somehow. I thought, oh, I could get the monitor that the DIT Vishnu is using. And he was at that stage, he was teaching in a school. He's not a real DIT, but he's an expert on IT. And I could get his screen, maybe someone could hold it up with the words on, and we were chatting and what we could do. And then Angie said, look, I can read the lines much easier if it's white on black, not black on white. And I was like, oh, great, I should have known this. Vishnu said, well, I can sort that out. It took him literally 2 minutes to copy the entire script, change it, put it to white on black, reload it. And he said, I'll put it on the iPad, put the iPad under the table. Here's my mini mouse. He's always holding his cell phone because he's the social media guy. So put my mini mouse on the back of his cell phone. No one can see it. And he can scroll through and the words can be underneath the table. And it's just, for him, it was so simple. But like simplicity being the hallmark of genius, I mean, I just was stunned at what a fantastic and simple solution that was. So we did that. White on black text on the iPad, underneath the table, where Angie could see it. The mouse on his cell phone, hidden from the camera, and he just scrolled through. And sometimes I had to edit around when it was obvious he was reading, because he was supposed to look down, read the line, look back up, deliver the line, but sometimes he was a bit late. So it wasn't perfect, but my God, it just fixed the solution. And I was so grateful to Vishnu and gave him a big hug, and he was nonplussed. He just didn't think he'd done anything special. And he saved me. Lesson learned, ask people for a solution, because it might come from someone you didn't expect it. And also research more. Get to know your people better. Learn where these problems might come. I remember watching a round table with Ridley Scott and talking about problems shooting. And he said, I rarely have a problem. I think he said 40 or maybe 400 TV commercials. He said, I've seen it all before. I see it coming over the hill. I know what problem is coming and we know how to fix it. That's where you need to be. I wasn't. So learn from me and make sure you know your people and know any shortcomings that might be there in the future that could cause you problems, because you might not be as lucky as I was in finding someone with an amazing solution. All right, now a couple of other things. We have a drowning scene. So our evil person drowns our heroine in the bath and thinks he's got away with it. But our goddess, who's resident in that room and gets her power from the water, rises up from the bath and then exacts her vengeance upon the antagonist, the evil murderer. We didn't have any money for special effects. We didn't have an action team. We didn't have stunts. So we had to figure out how to do this for ourselves. The goddess appears in full ceremonial traditional outfit, which is about, once it's wet, 12 to 15 kilos of silk and other materials and a headdress. And we needed it to come up out of the water. So the only way we could do the shot in one, the way we wanted to do it, was to have a shot of the drowning of the actress. Then we have a shot which seems to be the second part of the drowning of the actress, but now it's Askarina, our goddess, under the water. And after she's drowned and goes still underwater, she has to then stand up as the goddess and extract her vengeance on this murderer. But to do this, we have to hold her under the water until kicking around, and then she stops. So now she's drowned. And then for the angle that the shot is when the murderer is now looking in the mirror and she stands up behind him, we needed her to scoot down the bottom of the bath without making too much splashing, and then come up the other side and stand up there and attack him. So she has to hold her breath being drowned, hold her breath underwater, scoot along the bottom of the bath, compose herself, stand up in a regal, godlike manner, and act, dripping the water from the bath from all this heavy, heavy outfit. And getting her in exactly the right place in exactly the right way was not easy. 16 takes. This poor girl, 16 times she was drowned and scooted down the bath, stood up, and we got it. But I was lucky that we had somebody so determined and so resilient. This was something that I didn't anticipate. I didn't plan that scene well enough, and it took a long time to get it right. And if I'd had a prima donna, or I'd had let's say a A-lister actress, I'm sure would not have been prepared to do that. And I was incompetent there. I let the side down because we didn't plan that scene properly. Should have realized how we were going to do it, planned it better. Coulda, shoulda, woulda, and also maybe had some more money for some experts on how to do these things. But lesson being, a complicated scene like that, don't plan it and make it something that I'd be prepared to do. Would I accept to do 16 takes like that if I was going to be the actor? I don't think so. So that was remiss of me. So I think plan ahead, figure out what you would be prepared to do or what a highly paid professional actor would be prepared to do, and be realistic. Plan it better and make sure that it's a reasonable ask. Thank God Askarina did it for me. But she was exhausted and fed up at the end of that, and I abused her willingness. We got the shot, she was very happy, but I should have planned better. That's the lesson from that one. So finally we pulled off the impossible, according to Ian, and we finished at 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, Peter was ecstatic at that section because we had the Katya as a former model and Askarina dressed up as the goddess out on the beach. Many of the beaches in Bali have black sand, and so this is a natural black negative fill. And the light was beautiful, sunset. Peter was finally getting some beautiful shots that he was really happy about. I don't think it fully compensated him for all he went through to make this film, to be honest, but he was very happy, and the shots were beautiful. He was able to use them for his show reel, etc. And then at the end, I just wanted to gather everybody together and thank them and, call it a wrap. Get everybody organized around the pool, and then I say to them, Ian told me this was impossible. It probably was, but well done, you guys. With all your help and your contributions, etc., we have achieved the impossible. Thank you, it's a wrap, hurrah, everybody really happy and be on their way. The true test came a couple of weeks ago, a year later, when I wanted to do something else, and we see if we could get those people to come back. That's when you learn whether the people feel they were treated properly and contributed, and they were recognized and rewarded adequately for their contribution, if they'll do it again. So that was production. And at the end of production, I felt, woohoo, I've done it. I've shot a feature film. I have made a feature film. And that's it, I wrote it, directed it. Now I need to look for an editor and we'll go from there. But the main job is done, right? Or maybe not. All right, so a movie shot in the can. Move on to the easy bit now, the post-production, right? And this is where I fell down again because I hadn't planned properly. So I would say lesson to learn is everything in the post-production process, speak to the people related to it before you start the production so that you can make it as efficient and convenient as possible for these people to do their job. especially when it ends up being you. I couldn't find an editor. I thought I'd just hand this over to an editor. I'm done. I've shot the film. I'll find an editor. They'll do most of the work. I'll pop in now and then and check on it. And excited because a movie is made 3 times, when it's written, when it's shot, and then when it's edited. And a great editor is going to do an amazing job on this film, make it even better than my vision. I couldn't find anyone. I didn't expect to find a huge range of people in Bali, but even in Jakarta, Singapore, Hong Kong, I couldn't find someone who was the right fit to do the edit. Either they were too expensive and too difficult to get a hold of, or there were a lot of chances. Oh, I do Instagram Reels. Yeah, I'm an excellent editor. I can work on CapCut. And some people who just said, "Oh, give me a go. I'll do a great job of it. And let me have a look at your show reel." Okay, they send the reel, and either they don't send it or they send it and it's junk. A lot of people have a very inflated opinion of themselves. You know, oh, I bought an FX3 and made a couple of YouTube videos. Now I'm a DOP and a big-time editor. And that was disappointing. So I started as an editor. I went to the National Film School to do editing. And I realized then that if you start as, and this was recommended to me for this reason, you start as the person who's sitting there with the bin of clips, which don't make sense, don't link together, don't have the coverage. You're simply trying to nail something together from inadequate footage. It gives you a good eye, it gives you lots of lessons, which will help you later as a director to get the right clips, to get the right coverage, because you've been in that position. And editors can work miracles. They say every film is saved in the edit room, but you really need to save that to the bare minimum. And if a film is saved multiple times and has many workarounds, it's going to affect it. So you really don't want to do that. I decided to edit it myself. So that was more months out of work, do it myself, edit it. And again, I didn't realize what I was getting into. That scenario of not knowing what you don't know, even just syncing the sound, easy with the red, because we fed a channel into the red, we had it on there, so it was easy to sync. But the C300 Mark II, and it's got a scratch mic, and I've used it many times before, and I couldn't sync the sound, and I couldn't understand why. And I asked, Vishnu managed to help me do some of it, but it was a small percentage. It was going to take months to do it this way. I spoke to other people. I was offering money for somebody to fix this problem. And after 2 weeks, I myself finally realized what the problem was, which was that because we'd used the sync mic and then external channels, I hadn't used channels 1 and 2 on the sound, on the audio panel, the audio tracks, that Resolve was trying to sync to number 1, and there was nothing in it. So once I moved all the lines up, including something into line 1, then it was able to do its job and synchronized everything really well. A couple of minor glitches I was able to fix, or tracks that didn't have any sound. But that cost me weeks. And that's when you realize that another lesson is that, yes, you can do these things yourself, but you have to factor in that you are not doing it every day. You cannot keep abreast of all these little tricks and all the things that you take for granted when you whip through something on a daily basis. And it was weeks, and it costs a lot of time and effort. Anyway, I got it done. I got an edit done. And I also realized then, as I mentioned in production, that it was a struggle because I only had the 2 cameras. So most of the time we managed to get the 2 shots and the single shots. Sometimes though, Peter, for instance, had reframed a shot halfway through, made it much better, but now it screwed my edit, especially if the person's talking while you do it. And this was on multiple occasions. And I found that I had to have the person start the dialogue, cut to somebody else, and then maybe come back or maybe not, or start with somebody else while the first person is speaking and then cut to them. It's the only way I could cover things.
Hey there, Bill.
Andrew,
Hey,
what's up, man?
Just coming to check the place out a little bit. Check the power outages and everything. We've got the generators, but you know, these things are a bit out of our control. You know?
Yeah, it's fine.
And discussing some of it afterwards with Peter, he's like, "Why did you do this? Why did you do that?" I said, "Because I didn't have any coverage." If our coverage was like a carpet in a room, we just about reached the corners. We had nothing left over to do the stairs. Certainly not enough, even not enough for a couple of doormats. I mean, just covered. Thankfully, because of as I said before, me knowing the script and the coverage and what I wanted really well, and Peter's suggestion of doing close-ups on the major shots, the really important ones, after each main scene, saved my ass, and I was able to put it together. But there were some times I had to put an edit down and wait, walk around, leave it for 2 or 3 days, and then come back to it to figure out how I was going to do this. And sometimes thinking, I can't patch this together. So lesson there, make sure you've got your coverage, you know your script well, and you've got everything that you need. Then, of course, there's the age-old situation about killing your babies. I had several situations of beautiful shots, beautiful sequences. I'd written it. The actors had delivered it perfectly. It was great. But I had to cut a lot from the film. It was too long. And some of those had to go. And it's hard, but you have to be ruthless. Does this scene serve the film? Does it move the story on? Does it provide information that we absolutely have to have? Or is it just nice? If it's just nice, you have to cut it. And it's hard, but you have to do it. Be prepared for that. So I did an edit, first edit 2 hours. I knew it was going to be too long, have to cut it down to 1.5 hours. And I made a mistake there. I showed it to people. I was excited, I finished an edit, it looks good. That was a mistake because certain people I showed it to were potential producers or distributors who then refused to see it afterwards. It doesn't make sense. You say to them, I sent this thing to you, remember? It was 2 hours, I've cut it down to 90 minutes as you said. No reply, not interested. They watched the 2 hours version, didn't like it, you're done. So there's a lesson. Be very careful who you show your rough cuts to. Make sure it's the finished product that you're happy with, that's ready to be judged. Don't send it out too early, even though you're excited about it. That was my mistake. Then we came to the grade. Fortunately, I'd spoken to Valerio before. We discussed these issues of matching the red with the C300. Unfortunately, we had to cut the standard of the red footage, 10 or 15%. It's heartbreaking. There's wonderful red raw 16-bit 8K footage, and you have to reduce its quality so that, because you can't raise the quality of the C300. So that's what we had to do to get them to match. The final product, when people watched it, nobody commented like, oh, are they different cameras? Even Ben, who shot the C300, said, I know that was a C300 shot because I shot it, but if you told me it was a red, I'd believe you. So Valerio did a fantastic job. Then the next stage would be sound. And this is an area where it's another situation where you know what you know, the stuff you don't know, and there's things you don't know you don't know. So sound is something that I've never skimped on. And then we had a professional crew, multiple booms and lav mics, etc., doing it properly. And I figured, that's it. And I balanced the sound, I sorted out the dialogue, and I felt I was finished. And that's it. My movie was down to 90 minutes. It's graded. A little bit of special effects, just some simple stuff Valerio did so the audience understood that the goddess who appeared in the film, because we added that supernatural element, was unreal. And ready, as I thought. And I showed the 90-minute film. I'm thinking, yeah, it's ready to go. Unfortunately, some of the YouTube, the big YouTube channels, 15, 20 million subscribers who show movies, they're kind of like a consolidation system, moved the goalposts on me during post-production because I was ready, assuming that was going to be my major market. But they then said, like, no, all the sound, the dialogue has to be on a separate channel from everything else so that they can dub the movie into different languages. Without that, they wouldn't take it. And I couldn't do that without reshooting and doing all the sound or following the whole movie. I don't have money and time for that. So that was a disappointment. And I was trying to figure out what I could do to try and fix that problem, and decided that I couldn't. I'd just have to go some other route to try and figure it out later. So again, it's lack of planning in pre-production, lack of understanding of the market and distribution caused me a problem later, which I was incapable of fixing. Anyway, I showed this 90-minute film with what I thought was awesome sound or adequate sound to a few people, including Martin East, who's a long-term industry specialist, having started as a child actor, and he was in Titanic.
Is there anyone there?
Yes, what you see?
Iceberg, right ahead!
Thank you.
Various projects in Hollywood and TV and DJ. and lucky enough to live just around the corner from me. And he watched it and he said, mate, you're missing a whole dimension here. He said, the sound is okay, but it's not adding anything. And I didn't even understand what he meant. I knew that, you know, the likes of James Horner and John Williams are producing these amazing scores for blockbuster movies, and their effect is dramatic, and it's a large component of the impact of any scene. But that's out of my league, out of my budget, so I didn't even think about it. And he's like, look, I'll show you. He said, you're missing a massive impetus here. The whole dimension is not there. So Martin took a few sequences and showed me what he meant, and it's awesome. Changed the whole thing. I added in sprinkler sounds where there weren't any, and that covered the variations in the noise of the waves on the beach, which happened from one take to another, one scene to another. Bird sounds, special effects where doors were closed, cups were placed down, atmospheric vibe sounds, which he wrote himself and put in there, including some music of his that he put in.
Grab us and took us to the back of this forearm, and they tied me up on this bench, and then they start doing all this nasty stuff.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And it just changed completely. And I felt embarrassed that I hadn't understood this. Yes, I know a John Williams or a James Horner score is of huge importance and a lot of impact in any of these major blockbuster movies, but that's for them. I didn't think it would be for me. So I paid Martin a completely insignificant amount of money for him, but he had some free time to tackle the whole movie. And he elevated it, just put it into a different dimension. I realized that I had this idea that I wanted to just show that I could deliver a feature film. It's a finished product. You can trust me to make one. Here it is. And it's like workmanlike. It's done. But this was taking it to the next level of like, whoa, that's a professional film. It even looked better with the sound modifications. Really made a huge difference. So that was an area where I didn't know what I didn't know. Again, going back to the pre-planning, it's something that you have to factor in. You have to. If I'd spoken to Martin earlier on, I would have got a much better sound recording. We would have got a better idea of what was going to be required, planned for it, and the whole thing would have been even better. So my mistake was just focusing on getting a film in the can and saying, I've done my bit. And that's not it. It's more than that. And you have to plan from start to finish to deliver something that's integrated. So a big lesson there. Think your movie through from start to finish, right down to distribution, from the very first page of the script to it appearing on a movie theater if you're lucky, or going on to distribution onto a OTT channel. What's required every step of the way. Plan it, anticipate it, and be ready for it. Because it caused me problems not doing that. Much smoother if you've got that sequence, that progression already organized and planned. So now with the sound added up to an impressive standard, I was ready to try and do something with the film. And having effectively been excluded from these the large YouTube channels, I looked at Film Hub. Film Hub's had some negative press recently that it's not providing the services as well as it used to, or customer service has deteriorated. I don't know. It's my first time using it. It was a nightmare for a beginner. It's so complicated to set up. You've got to have a minimum, but not a minimum to maximum amount of space at the beginning of your film. Something happens at the end. The credits have to be like this. The codecs, the resolution, what you're allowed to submit. That I managed to get through not too bad. Had to do multiple edits and eventually managed to get my film there. And then the similar bunch of criteria for your trailer. Then the artwork, oh my God. A 3x2, a 2x3, 16x9, 9x16, 16 by this square. Oh my God, it was an absolute and complete and utter nightmare to get the artwork through. I actually paid somebody on Fiverr to do it for me. And that guy took so long, I gave up and just did it myself. I did manage to figure it out, but it's the sizes, the resolutions, Now, it's because Film Hub is going to put your product on many different platforms, ranging from Amazon to Tubi to whatever. And you've got to provide something that satisfies all of those, and their requirements, particularly artwork, are not the same. But it's a mission. So again, pre-planning, know about it. If you're going to do it, have somebody else do it, or you're going to have to put the time and the effort in to learn how to do the Film Hub. But my movie's there. It's on Amazon. It's on Tubi. It's out there. I think I've made $9 so far. So it's not going to change my life in the short term, but at least it's out there and I can refer people to it. And I can say, yes, the movie is on Amazon if someone's interested. Or if I want to showcase, yes, I've made a movie, have a look on there, see if you think I might be able to help you with your project based on that. So it's worth doing. But bear in mind, it's not straightforward by any means. Also remember that with regards to your music, rights are particularly important, and many of these channels will ask you to prove that you've got the music rights, the permission to use it, and also the same thing with all your actors, that they've signed all their waivers and everything else is there. So it's important to make sure that you get all that documentation and file it appropriately and have it ready and in the formats that they want to present. So again, there's a lot of admin paperwork. These are all things that if you're lucky enough to tie up with a production company or a distributor or a major studio, for instance, that they take care of. But there's a lot of stuff there that needs to be done. So factor that in if you're on some kind of a time scale trying to get your movie out there. So what's left for me now? Well, film festivals, I put the film in a few film festivals, won some awards, even got a director's award, which is nice, but film festivals don't really help you very much unless they're attached to a film market. Asian film market is coming up, so I'm going to go there and try to sell the film there. I hope if I can sell it a couple of times, I might be able to get my money back and at least then be in a position of having made a profitable film, which I think is very important. This is, as Dov Simmons labors, show business, not show art. It's about making money. So that's a good factor. So you need to think about that side of things as well. Put some money to one side. Think about the best festivals for you, film markets for you that are nearby. And again, the more thought you give to that up front, the easier it is going to be later. You don't want to end up that you've maneuvered your film out of those markets by choosing something that's not popular. I mean, if that's your artistic integrity, then that's what you have to do. But if you want to sell it, you have to think down the line. And that's it. That's where we are now. I started this video with quite a negative attitude, in a sense, a bit of a provocative statement. But it's true. For a year, I didn't want to make another film. It really put me off filmmaking. It was so draining, so tiring, so exhausting, just as everybody says. I would actually get nauseous at the idea of doing it again. And if that's a low budget film, it's just going to be a nightmare. Yeah, it would be a bit easier because I've learned things, but I still don't want to make another low budget film unless it was something I was really passionate about, helping friends, exceptional circumstances. I don't want to go through that again. And if you step up into the, say, single-digit $1 million productions, that sounds like a lot of those things will be taken care of and will be much easier, and that's true. But then your return is not going to be that high. They're not going to be paying you more than a few tens of thousands of dollars to work on a production of that budget. Now, if you're lucky enough to stumble into a $10, $50, $100 million budget, yes, of course, things are going to get A, lot easier in terms of resources, B, you're going to get a lot more money, and C, there's a lot more responsibility, a lot more pressure on you. I'm a helicopter pilot. I fly machines worth up to $18 million. But I'm trained for it. I've done it a lot, and we're constantly practicing for emergencies. So I don't think too much about the cost of the aircraft and the value of the lives of the people entrusted to me when I'm flying it. I just do my job. And that's where you'd have to be, I think, to make one of those massive budget feature films. There's still the pressure. Something could go wrong and derail the project, but there are contingency funds, there's insurance, and it's not your fault, hopefully. Whereas when you're making a zero budget film for yourself, one tiny little glitch, one thing gets forgotten, one person has a meltdown and walks away, you're screwed. It's all over. Your money's gone. So you're working against that, or it's millions of dollars in the balance. And yeah, I think you need to have quite a lot of experience and confidence, and have been there and seen it. I suppose getting from your low budget, high stress feature film to that level is making lots and lots of films, which is something you need to factor in. Making your first feature film is unlikely to catapult you to the highest level. It's probably not going to change your life overnight. It certainly hasn't changed mine. And that's maybe the biggest lesson that I could pass on, is to say that manage your expectations. It's probably not going to change your life. And don't set your expectations so high that you end up disappointed and have this anticlimactic feeling, which I think I'm left with. It's like, I did this amazing thing and it made no difference and nobody cares. And I didn't even get my money back. So that can be demoralizing, and you maybe get put off, and it can destroy your morale. And one thing that it's done is that I had this burning desire, passion to achieve this thing. And now that I've made the feature film, that's gone. That's not there anymore. So I feel a bit empty. I almost feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done it, because now I don't have that burning passion, that enthusiasm anymore. That could be temporary. I'm told that this kind of feeling can last for a year or more. And that's about the time scale I'm at. But so far, I'm nauseated at the idea of making anything low budget. We did do a music video a couple of weeks ago, because I promised Dave that we would professionally record and make a music video of the song that he sang in 327. That was many of the same guys coming back, not just for the catering, I hope, but also to work with us. Basically the same crew and a couple of members of the cast from 327, but just a 2.5 minute music video in a couple of different locations. And as far as I can tell, we all had fun. Everybody knew what they wanted to do, a proven team, and that was a pleasurable experience. It's not gonna, again, it's just something I wanted to do. It's not a life-changing event. It's got a couple of hundred views, it's not going crazy, but it's that was fun. So I can sort of imagine maybe if you could extrapolate that to a good, solid, big team and proper budgets and catering and feeling confident, secure that you can produce what you're intending to produce, could be a good experience. But right now I'm still feeling kind of numb, and I don't think it's something that I'm going to be doing again. I don't think so. But I hope this was useful for you. Lots of issues, problems, bad preparation on my part, which I urge you to tackle and head off, to plan for, so you don't have to fall into my traps. If any of the solutions we came up with were useful to you, that's great. And if anything I raised you maybe hadn't thought about and you can now avoid, that would also be, it would be nice to know. I hope that's useful to you, at least maybe just observing this journey, knowing now fully what you're into if you embark on making your own feature film, and what the end result might actually be. I hope that's of use to you, or entertained or amused you. Anyway, good luck. And then I went to dinner a few nights ago with my girlfriend for her birthday, and her sister came along, who's worked on most of my projects so far. And I showed her a rough cut of what I was making with Andy. Andy's wants to make an episode as a pilot for his TV series, and I was helping him shooting some B camera and directing the actors a little bit. And I really wasn't enjoying it. Andy's got his own style of doing things, which takes some getting used to as well, but it's just, I wasn't enjoying it. Anyway, I showed Dhea the rough cut Andy sent for that scene. Now there's no dialogue, no voiceover, there's nothing. So she said, oh, Andy's film, no words, no words at all. Mike's film, all words, all dialogue, too many words. And I laughed, and I was going to, a reply was formulating in my head, which began, yeah, don't worry, Dhea, on the next film, there's going to be lots of action, I'm going to minimize the dialogue. And I just sat there, I said, what do I mean on my next film? Where did that come from? On my next film? Is that still inside me? On my next film. On my next film.